And let me know if the music is too loud too, because I can turn that down. I am using a friend of mine's music. He gave me permission to use his music, and it's very relaxing. Let me see if I can say his name, because I highly recommend it. So David Young on Spotify under Expanded Consciousness. That's the playlist. I'm not sure who posted it. From one account, it's not my playlist, but if you can write that down and listen to it, your body will get used to a certain kind of relaxing music when you draw, and your whole body will react to that. When I draw, I relax. It's an additional tool that we use here in the studio. Let's see, is it right? Oh, good. I got it. Yay! Thanks, Linda and Sandy. Okay, so today is not about, I'm not gonna draw a picture today. I'm gonna go over some tools today so that we can go into the field and do some sketching. All right, here's the page that I was looking for. So if you have this page, if you have this book, it's book 40, page 40 and 41, and she goes over supplies that you'll need, and how to get started working in the field. Lighting is a big issue for artists. So lighting changes when you're outside. So when we're outside drawing, I will take a picture of what I'm going to spend some time on, so that later on as I'm drawing, I might draw for like maybe a half an hour, the lighting's going to change, the sun's moving, and beginners don't often take that into consideration, and they think something's wrong, but really the lighting has changed and the shadows have moved, and the object that they're working on, it really does look different. Water will do that, a hillscape will do that, and if you're just doing a study of like bark or something like that. So I recommend taking a picture and kind of referencing, so you know you're kind of not going nuts. It's a change in lighting, and things will look a little bit different. But the object, it really is, when you're sketching in nature, to work quickly. So I use a 2B pencil and a Kneaded eraser, and I'll bring the Vanish Eraser as well. This is only available online as far as I know. I haven't seen it in any stores. We sell them here thanks to Phil, and they're fairly inexpensive. The reason why I like it is because when you erase, it doesn't smear. I know, a lot of people, I can feel you going, oh, it doesn't smear, I want one. Because most erasers that look like this will smear at least a little bit. This doesn't smear at all. It kind of gathers it up in a ball, almost like if you've ever done masking in watercolor, it kind of pulls it up in that way, and it's not abrasive to the paper. So this is basically all I need when I go on the road, basically. So I'll go over that a little bit, and I'll sample what the pencils can do for you and why you switch back and forth between the pencils. I'm also going to go over where to get started. Like if you were to go out in your backyard right now and you're looking at all the trees and the grass and the stones, nice, Sandy, how do we get inspired by this? I mean, that's really the reaction. There's so much, it's a little overwhelming to kind of get inspired, especially right now. Things are really brownish, and we don't have those pretty, spring colors to inspire us. But really, it's here. It's up in here. That's where and then when we bring our thoughts down into our hearts, we start to appreciate the thing that we're looking at. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about how to do that, so you can spend time with the most ordinary, simple objects and see the beauty in it as you learn how to draw it, like a stick. So let's start with the pencils. I'll just go over just a little bit of the different pencils here, like why we have 2B. And I'm not really sure how well this is gonna come out. So I'm gonna use the same pressure. Now notice I'm holding the pencil like this. This is probably one of the most basic lessons that I teach people that really is mind-blowing. I'm holding the pencil like this because I'm not writing, I'm drawing. And so my mind says she's not writing. So I get an even coverage because my body is used to that. My hand is used to holding that differently. When I do this, my hand is going to write, and it's going to be a little bit, well, a lot streakier. It's going to be lines. I can get that scenario here, but it's going to be harder to control the pressure, and I'm just using the tip. When I'm using it like this, I'm using the length of the graphite. So I get a nice coverage. So if I was doing something like this, or if I was doing maybe a nice rolling landscape, hills, water, that's going to be more beneficial than this. It's kind of like, well, streaky. There's lines in it. And this is much harder to erase. Not everybody will find that, but I know that about me. So the first thing you can do when you do get a set of these drawing pencils is test out where you are as far as applying pressure with pencil. So the 4B is in between. And again, I'm not sure how clear this is in the iPad. So I went over this 3 or 4 times. I'll go over this, same pressure, 3 or 4 times. And you notice the value, which is the light to dark, is a little bit darker. I'm going to switch to the 6B pencil. You can see right away, hopefully you can see, just with one application. I haven't even gone over it yet. It's already darker, and I'm actually using a lighter pressure. You can go 6B, 9B, 12B. I think they have sets where they even have the in-between numbers. And so I've got 3 values, light to dark. That right there is probably the most valuable thing that you can make yourself aware of in beginner drawing. We don't often think in values. And so, for instance, when I'm drawing a tree, and I'm using a lot of different marks to imply the foliage in a tree, I'm taking into account the values that I see. So there'll be a clump of lights and darks, and then another clump of lights and darks, another clump of lights and darks in a tree, in the foliage. And what I'm focusing in on is the shapes that I can see using the lights and the darks, almost finding the edge of the lights and darks. So that's why knowing your values and practicing them and just getting yourself a little bit more aware of seeing them, and then looking out in nature and noticing the values. The value in a cloud, the value in a foliage or the grass that you're looking at. And I think that the struggle is we see color and we don't often correlate black and white values that we're maybe aware of to the value of colors. So color has value. I talked about that a little bit yesterday in the acrylic painting class. And so what I recommend people do is anything that you're seeing in nature, take a picture, and on your camera, on your phone, you can put it in edit, and then put it into grayscale, or there's a couple of other features that takes the color out. So sometimes grayscales on some editing features will actually take too much out, and it's too washed out, and you lose your darker values. So just play around with the editing and the picture that you took. So maybe take a picture of just grass. Just go out in your backyard, take a picture of that, and then come back, it's in color, and then you hit edit, and then go down and see if you can take the color out. And notice how many values you see now that you're taking a moment to become aware of the values in your photo, whatever nature photo that you can take. And the rest of it is just techniques. So how you hold the pencil, how you're applying the swishing and the ups and downs, and we'll use all sorts of artistic words like swishing. So just kind of notice and start to, I don't know, just imagine yourself making marks that would potentially look like the values that you see. Because most things in nature are just a collection, when you're rendering them, of different values applied in different ways. It's that simple. So when you're learning to draw, you're slowing down and looking at things that you might not otherwise take time to see. And then you are applying different techniques, different ways of holding the pencil, using your different tools to render what you see. And the next biggest part is drawing what you see and not what you know, because when I say draw grass, most people would do something like that. There's some grass. We know grass goes like that. But if you go out and take a picture of grass in your backyard right now, I guarantee you it's not going to look like that. It's going to be complicated. It's going to have lines going in and out. It's going to be a little overwhelming, actually. So rendering things in the way that we see them it's a patient journey of slowing down, noticing the values in shape and line and form, and just taking a small little corner. So if you've got a picture this big, just look at that smallest corner and just focus on that. What do you see? What do you see? Lights, darks, lines, forms. And then notice if it's hard edges, blended edges, and things like that. That's where your tools come in. So for instance, if I had some value down on a piece of paper and I had a picture in front of me that was the grass in my backyard, randomly taken, and now I've edited it and it's in grayscale. This is a great challenge to just be aware of how complex things in nature are and how we can capture just a little bit of it with some tools. So I might put some value down because it's going to be dark. I can almost guarantee it's going to be a little bit like medium to dark values at least. And I can take this eraser and start lifting. And start to get some complex forms and shapes and lines. Notice I turned it. It gets a little bit dirty once in a while. And then what you can do is simply wipe it off. And then you can do it again. We cut the edges of these Vanish erasers to get a nice sharp line. Now I've got all these little lines, and then I've got just some graphite that's in between. Now I've drawn grass a couple times, so I'm kind of going off the cuff on this. So I'm just showing you technique without actually having a picture in front of me to do this with. So we've got 3 different leads, the 2B, the 4B, and the 6B. Noticing how we hold the pencil, just a little bit different than we do when we write. And we've lifted just a little bit with the Vanish eraser, just to kind of get some lines and forms and shapes. Then, this is the magic tool right here. This is the blender. Now, some art teachers are not really in line with using the blender, and I get it. But this brings joy to so many students. I'm not starving people of the blender. It's just a great feeling, because a lot of times you'll get that liney look when you want a really nice smooth surface. So we hold the pencil, we hold the blender, and this is a pressed paper blender, not a rolled blender. So you hold it like this. So you use the full edge. You can see that it has that line right there from someone else having used it before me. And you go with light pressure first. I tend to go in circles unless I have a flat surface, which like the side of a barn or the side of, like a desk or a table. I might go like this. And I'm getting a little bit harder with my pressure, just kind of determining the pressure that works for me. Nice. And while you're doing this is a great opportunity to take a nice deep breath. This is a wonderful exercise for kids if you've got the kids at home, because we'll do these in family sessions. So we've got mom, dad, teens, and littles all in the same class, and they're just playing with the tools. The outcome really it just doesn't matter. Look at that. You can still see the value difference between here and here. So that's important because we're just talking about being aware of the values and how to achieve them with the utensils that we're using. Utensils, the tools, the drawing tools. So that's a good way to just practice the blending. Now, how do we do this when we have line and form? We're actually trying to make it look like something. So then we might change how we're using the tool itself, the blender. And I'm gonna maybe move this a little closer so you can see me working small. Again, what I'm doing is preparing you for the live videos that I'm gonna be going into out by the lake by myself, nice and safe, and doing some drawing out in the field so you can see how do I decide what I wanna draw and how do I start, and hopefully you can enjoy that. And start to get to know your backyard just a little bit. So if I was back to this very complicated grass scene that I've taken a picture of and it's now in grayscale on my phone, let's do this. I don't actually have a picture. I'm just showing you the technique. So I've got a line, I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. I've got a line right here and here. So let's assume this is a piece of grass here that goes off somewhere. There's a piece of grass here. And there's a darker space underneath those two pieces of grass. I'm just going to start out with light pressure. The blender will bring those two pieces to the foreground just a little bit by blending the background a little bit darker and a little bit softer. But what I'm trying to achieve, and I'll point it with a pencil so you can see it, is this sharp line and this sharp line now comes forward. Then I'll take a pencil and very lightly, this is still the 2B, I'm not ready for the 6B yet. I'm going to emphasize that line and that crispness right there. So eventually, as I work in layers, these two pieces of grass will start to look like they're above and below each other with the shadow underneath. So I'm going to make this a piece of grass, that a piece of grass. And why am I saying grass? Why am I? Because it's the most mundane thing I can think of. And when we are appreciating ordinary things around us, we truly know that we are using our time valuably. So my hope is that we see the miracle in the ordinary, the extraordinary in the ordinary. And so maybe drawing grass isn't your thing, but what if? What if the most simple thing in nature is what we're missing? And you take the time to really observe the texture, the value, the importance of that grass that's still maybe slumbering just a little bit because spring is not quite here on the East Coast. So back to the drawing. Yes, I torture my students in the studio with the same, I go off on tangents all the time. Why do we have to do this, Sandy? Well, sometimes it's nice to get back to the basics. So now I'm actually using the pencil to bring out this line and that line. Again, I don't have a reference photo, so this may not look like grass, but this is certainly the technique that you can use to draw just a random camera capture of some grass out in your backyard. Oh my gosh, I'm envisioning your children outside with the phones just hopping all over the place like they're looking for Easter eggs and they're just finding the best tuft of grass they can find. So, one thing I do very often in the studio, and I'm going to do it now, is recommend that you all take a nice deep breath in, let it go. I'm going to take another one. Nice deep breath in. And let it go. We'll be covering this in this sphere shading in an afternoon session. I'm just going to sit and shade a sphere. I think I'm going to try and do that around 1 o'clock if you want to tune back in. It's something you can do with the kids. And anyone can do it, but it's really nice to just trace a circle and sit down with the kids with any pencil and any eraser and practice how you hold the pencil and shading it. So that'll be another tutorial I'll do later today. Today's going to be all about drawing. I'm going to do short little videos 10 o'clock honoring our ongoing class time for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. But I'm also going to be doing some live feeds just throughout the day in case people are looking for something to do. And then you can revisit the video at any point. We'll be saving them to our YouTube channel, which is Arts and Healing with Sandra. So go ahead and like that. The more likes we get, the more possibility we can go live on YouTube, which is a much better quality. So we have a little bit of review. We've learned about the blender and how fun that can be. I wonder if Amazon's getting blown up with blender purchases right now. We have two kinds of erasers. This is the Vanish Eraser, which you can also get online. It comes in a little red box. This is a Kneaded Eraser, K-N-E-A-D-E-D, Kneaded Eraser, not I need your eraser, but we kind of do need this eraser. And we went over 2B, 4B, and 6B pencils, and how the softness of the lead rubs off, the higher the number, the more graphite rubs off. So that's just a little bit review. And we are talking also about, I'm going to be going to Onondaga Lake by myself and sit lakeside and just choose things in nature that inspire me. I'm going to share why and how I chose what I wanted to do. And I'm referencing this book. So if you want to continue to work along with me, I will recommend that you buy this book. I don't recommend a lot of books, but anything by Claudia, top notch. She's a phenomenal instructor. The book is so usable from cover to cover, how to get started, how to continue, how to challenge yourself. She also includes different mediums. I'm just going to be using the pencil with her book. I might get into a little bit of ink drawing as well. But if you have a reference book at home and some supplies to work with, then I think you can work right alongside these live videos that I'm putting out, and hopefully it allows you a little distraction, B, some coping skills for relaxing. So I'm going to be reminding you to breathe, and this is really all about slowing down, taking time to do something that you wouldn't otherwise take time to do, like learning how to draw, because it does take time. We're not born knowing how to draw. Well, some people are, and I'm a little jealous of them because I'm not a natural drawer. I had to work really hard to learn how to paint and draw. So for me, it's been a very patient, impatient roller coaster journey to learn how to draw. So I think that makes me a fairly good teacher in helping people that feel challenged, or most cases, people say, I can't draw. I hear that literally every day. I can't draw. And if you haven't watched my TED Talk, The Art of Letting Go, you'll hear me talk about how deeply sad that makes me, because we can all create. This is about slowing down, noticing the ordinary, and noticing the extraordinary in the ordinary. And when we draw, sometimes we see a cloud for the very first time. Sometimes we see grass for the very first time. And that's really where my love of trees comes from, because that's my favorite thing to draw. Tomorrow is going to be trees and rocks and watercolor. Yep, beginner watercolor. And I'll sample different levels, different grades of watercolor, because there's a professional grade watercolor and the stuff that you can get at Michael's. Just anything that you have is fine. We're just going to work with some very simple shapes and form, and it really should be watercolor paper. If you don't have watercolor paper, I pause trying it at home. Unless you're the kids, go at it, kids. Just get the color on the paper. But as far as watercolor is concerned, the paper really is a little bit important. So I'll be talking about just the basics and what to buy if you want to learn watercolor at home, how to get started, and how to use it as a meditation. Watercolor is not the hardest medium. I hear that all the time. So it's really about your supplies that you're using and how you get started. Beyond that, it's very meditative. It's truly the art of letting go, and how you can feel like you have some say, some control in where that paint goes and what it does when you put the water down. So that'll be in tomorrow's lesson. I'll have some more drawing skill building and tutorials throughout today. And if you're busy or you just don't know when to tune in, you just visit Sandra Sabine. Just put me in the search box in your Facebook page, and you'll see all the live feeds that I've been doing. Tune into any one of them. I'm trying to put the topic in the title, so you can just say, just choose what you're interested in and kind of hearing about. So thanks for tuning in. I'm going to tune out and kind of set things up for another live feed later on. Again, I'm going to see how cold it is and see if I'm lakeside today. If not, it will be in the next couple days. I'll do little periods of live sketching by Onondaga Lake, so that you can really see out in nature how to get started, even drawing in your own backyard. So have a great day, be well, and I'll see you soon.